that? A way to think about it might be if an investigative site were to corner you in the back of the room during this conference, or one of your CRO partners, and their feeling was that they're just not seeing the kind of project volume that they've seen in the past. How do you respond to that? Because Reinilde, you've really painted a picture of something that indeed sounds more resilient, and it sounds like spending, at least at that high level, continues to flourish for many organizations.
So I would wonder if you broke down that spending, how it would break out. Is it actually more trials, or is it the requirement to collect more data on each trial? So the trials themselves are becoming more expensive. So while we may be seeing an increase as opposed to a decrease in the spend in R&D, is that actually reflective of more of a pipeline getting pushed through, and the statistics on how many NDAs get approved per year, et cetera, would counter that? So I think operationally, and to that comment about sites and CROs not seeing the volume is probably true. It's just costing us more to get to the same end goal.
I think also the complexity of the trials that are being conducted now. You used to run more trials, but you didn't ask a bunch of simple questions. Now you want to try to get the most out of your return on investment. So it's a trial, but the trial has lots of endpoints, and those endpoints add a lot of data. And as you start looking at the number of sites and the patients that you're trying to recruit into those trials, it becomes more and more complex because you're looking for a very specific entity to enter a trial to get the endpoints you want out of it, which is taking more time as well. So enrollment's not finishing on time. Site selection becomes more of a challenge because you're looking for that very unique patient that will meet the needs of those trials because they are more complex. So I do think at the end, you're spending more money on your trials than you did quite a while ago, and your cycle times are getting longer.
I don't know. I think that there's been a shift, perhaps, over the last 10 to 15 years in terms of where we focus. The questions that we're asking, which populations we're actually looking for. And so the mainstream trials to provide medications to mass markets so that we can go into realm of prevention is no longer the case. I think there is indeed a lot of focus on niche markets and specific patient populations, and so we're moving more perhaps into specialty areas and less into the generalist recruiting physician. And I believe that perhaps that could account for a lowering of the volume. The lowering of the volume and perhaps the switching of patient populations is more reality than are we responding to economics, because the cost of drug development remains the same. And if our goal is to bring products to the market, we have to invest at 1.2 billion. So if investigators are wondering why we're not approaching their sites, they may want to take a look at what exactly are they focusing on in terms of the specialty populations that they're trapping and beginning to look at and treat. I think there's also change that is required in those who have been classified as investigators over the last 20 years to really rethink their infrastructure and how they approach patients at sites. I think you have to be a lot more flexible and a lot more open to these specialty populations that we are now seeking. I don't think it's a secret that almost every company is trying to get into the oncology space or trying to consolidate their presence in the oncology space. If you look at inflammation and immunology, we're also targeting more specific patient populations. The whole area of cardiovascular metabolic, while still important, is not as active as the other new therapeutic areas are. And so as we think about economics, it's very, I think, very difficult for me as a person in the industry to think about short-term economics and the impact, because we've got such larger drivers and such bigger change and focus areas than just the last 18 months.